Welcome to Game Film, where we dive deep into the minds of advisors and industry leaders. In each episode, we uncover the stories behind their victories and achievements, offering you invaluable insights and lessons to help you grow and succeed. So, sit back, relax, and let's roll the film.
Welcome to Game Film. My name is Jordan Hutchison, and I'm here with Sean Brown, the CEO of YCharts. Sean, it's great to have you on. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me on. It's going especially well, being that we're post St. Patrick's Day.
It is, and you were based in Chicago, so of course it is a lively time there. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, I one time got a trivia question wrong because I thought that like New York probably had some of the biggest stuff, but of course we know that like the Green River and stuff in Chicago, but Chicago actually does it pretty big there. So
They really do. I did see something the other day though that said in Chicago they dye their river to be Irish. In Boston, we are Irish.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about YCharts and all things. I'm excited to jump into it because our advisors have loved working with you and your team. But to kick us off, the way that we always started is, what would be your come out song or your hype song if you were going on stage? I know you're asked to speak in many times. So if you were going up to speak, or you do have your jersey on today, which makes me very happy, what would be your come out song for that?
So I've got my Notre Dame Fighting Irish jersey on right now, and I'll put myself in that mindset. If I came out to a song, it would be "Lose Yourself" by Eminem. You know, it's just something about that song with that beat, that just gets your heart racing, and then those lyrics that are all about like you got
Good
big
focus.
moments in your life and make the most of them and overcome your trepidations or your obstacles. Make the most of your big moments.
That's a great one. It's always been like the short list on a playlist because it is a good one. It's all about focusing and actually being a former basketball, very retired, very average basketball player. I'd say to myself, the one is always be ready when your card's pulled. And so like when your opportunity arises, you got to step up. And so I love that one, but great one. And so it's a great song, but jumping right in to kind of follow in with that. So how did you get into the financial services profession? Because we always have a unique way. You know, there's always every year I feel like they say there's a shortage, but for some reason we're not running out of them, of people in the financial services industry. But it's always unique how all of us come in here. So how did you end up in financial services, Sean?
My story is a little bit embarrassing, actually. I was a finance major undergrad, and I took a job, accepted a job, what is now Accenture, and then that used to be called Anderson Consulting. And I don't know whether I'd been drinking too much the night before my interview, but I thought the job I was interviewing for and accepted was to be a financial analyst. It turned out I was hired to be a software developer. So I got in, they handed me a book on coding, and I just said, "Oh my gosh, what have I done here?" But I quickly grew to love the intersection of what I knew, which was financial services and technology. And 30 plus years later, that's still what I'm doing for a living.
Oh, that's a great story, and actually wildly different turnout from being able to be a developer to being an analyst on that side. So that's a hell of a surprise there.
Yeah.
So give us a little overview of YCharts and how you came to founding that company.
So YCharts is 16 years old, and I actually joined YCharts 9 years ago. Um, and we're really about two things. We're about helping wealth advisors and asset managers make better investment decisions, number one, and better communicate their insights. So just saw a real need in the market uh, for especially advisors to be more efficient, more market aware, and save them time so that they can go do things like meet with clients rather than getting bogged down in the minutia of what happened in the market today and how do I tweak this portfolio.
No, that's a great answer. And honestly, I always, and maybe it's just because of me learning about YCharts is that I always thought that this was your brainchild of you bringing it up, and maybe it's just because you were able to scale it and get it out there and get the story told everywhere. But I know that our advisors have very much so loved all of it, and we'll talk more about some of the features of it, but have loved using it because it truly gives that opportunity that I think even the industry is moving closer to, is being able to show and discuss and have that discussion with your clients on it, because that is where I think a lot of the edge is with advisors and with technology, is now you can display everything that you're trying to communicate instead of it
Yeah.
being this abstract thought.
Yeah. One of the interesting things with our business, Jordan, is the founder, who's no longer with us. He put the word charts in our name, and it's almost like if Jeff Bezos had named his company Online Books. It would have felt a little restrictive. The thing we sometimes deal with is we support so many workflows, and charting is about 5% of what we do,
Yeah.
but we've got it in our name. So it's sometimes interesting when we meet two people. They're like, hey, I may or may not need charting. And we're like, yeah, sorry about that brand at the top of us, but let us tell you about all the things we do way beyond charting.
No, and that's a perfect segue, because I wanted to talk about some of those features, because we were talking a little bit about this before, because we have we have some chartered market technicians in the RFG community, and they love the chart piece to it, but there is so many other features that they're using that they enjoy so much, and you've got some good ones that just came out that were released, that I'll let you give the excitement about some of those, because they, as you know, we're recording right now, some of those were just released in the last few weeks, so by the time this is put out, everyone might have already been playing with that tool. So it'll be cool to hear. But tell a little bit more about some of those features. I know I have some favorites, but what are some ones that you're seeing that advisors or your team is really excited about using?
So a couple things. First of all, everybody comes to YCharts and they start with the dashboard. The dashboard allows them, very customizable, allows them to track what's going on in markets. What do they need to know about portfolios? What are some trends? What's news? So the average advisor spends 35 to 45 minutes a day on our platform, and their starting point is our dashboard. Where they go from there depends on their job and depends on what's top of mind today. So just to give you a couple examples, if Mr. and Mrs. Jones are coming in and they are prospective clients, they're going to focus in, the advisor is going to focus in on our proposal functionality. And they're going to quickly ask Mr. and Mrs. Jones for their current brokerage statements or their advisor statements. They're going to take a phone or screenshot of that statement, which is going to automatically ingest into YCharts and instantly create an analysis that says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's how you're currently, your portfolio is currently structured.
Yeah.
Here's how we recommend, and here's why. So maybe they're in biz dev mode right now, and we help them with that. Maybe even before they're in biz dev mode, they're in marketing mode, which is, hey, let me put my smart insights out, and we help people do that. But if next on their agenda today is, hey, Mr. Smith is coming in, and Mr. Smith said, hey, I really don't want to be invested in Tesla, but I like electric vehicles. What are some alternatives that I could be invested in? Tear sheets and things like that to do some research. All the way to creating, tweaking, adjusting portfolios to just staying abreast on what's going on with interest rates.
Right.
It just depends on who they are and what they do, but we've tried to support the key workflows, whether you're in business development or you're a rep as PM who is saying, hey, I have to do everything from change toner ink to manage models to be reactive for clients.
No, and I love that, the breadth of all of that, because for us, a lot of times our advisors use it on that business development side where they're using the extraction tool to be able to show that proposal, where you can show like, well, here's where you're at. Did you know this? And then even some of the granular ones too, like one of our advisors here is a big fan, like very deep planner, and his clients, he has some very high net worth, like ultra high net worth clients. If they have the question of, hey, how much Apple do I actually have throughout the whole portfolio?
Mm-hmm.
That,
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like such a simplistic question, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of software out there that doesn't have that depth to it. And I always remember that because when I came here before our relationship, that was a question that came up, and they were like, "Oh yeah, well we don't have a way to do that. I usually have
Yeah.
to like get really manual with it, and it burns hours."
Yeah.
Whereas now,
Yeah, that's a super popular use case. Most people don't realize that they are 5 to 6% exposed to Apple or Amazon or other, Microsoft. They don't realize because it's a subatomic element in 7 of the funds that they hold. And it's eye-opening to say, are you comfortable with that type of exposure?
yeah, and I mean with this isn't the market. This is tilted towards advisors and technology, but this isn't the market's podcast. But the area where like all of the technology sector is, and like the core ones are carrying so much that so many people forget how much of the weight of their portfolio is in that, especially the higher net worth
Hmm.
they are. So that is a common question that, and I'm like, well, here you go, and I just like
Yeah.
hand this up, but that is a great use case of it.
And Jordan, the big theme we have for deciding what we do is, we have inside our four walls, we say we're trying to make the complex easy and the easy quick. So that's how we think about things every day. And we're saying, hey, what's complex for advisors right now? How can we make that easier?
Right.
And if it's easy, how do we make it super quick? So, you know, I don't know if you want to talk about it now or talk about it in a little bit, but we've rolled out some new AI functionality
Yeah,
that
let's do it. Yeah.
blows my mind. And good time.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to hear it. That was actually my next one. I'm excited about that tool as well.
So listen, the market's not ready, and it shouldn't be ready for a machine to make all decisions on what goes on with a client portfolio. We aren't trying to use AI for that reason. Supporting our theme, though, of making the complex easy and the easy quick, we've tried to say, hey, if it took you before 3 clicks to create a chart, and then you enter some parameters, and then you press create chart, and then you got to do some tweaking, how can we make that super quick? So what we've done is we've put everywhere in our software natural language support. So you can come in, hey, I'm on a podcast in 30 minutes and I need to look smart about the 10-2 yield curve, interest rates, and the price of lumber. Give me 30-second talking points and a few relevant charts. The answer to these questions is already in our software, but you used to have to do some things. Now you just say it. If somebody says, wow, my Mr. and Mrs. Smith called and they've said, hey, what did happen to Rivian today? Why is that down 8%?
Right.
Type that in. You used to be able to go to news and look up Rivian. Now just say what happened to Rivian today. And not only does it give you the natural language answer, but it pulls in a chart from YCharts that then the chart's created. Now you can manipulate it as you see fit. So that's what I'm super excited about, is supporting normal advisor use cases, but super, super quickly.
And that's the great use case of AI, is where, because that saves so much time, where all of that would be where an advisor would have to look it up, find, like you said, look up the ticker, figure out what's being talked about, actually read some articles to see what's actually going on instead of have a concise review of it, and then possibly even have to build that chart like you're mentioning. They might already have to put all that together. But if it's there, it's prompt. You guys have actually put out a ton of good research about communication, and it's one of my favorites because it talks about just the importance of communication. You guys have the ability to send automated reports and automated charts to clients, because we all know that there's those clients that are like, I love to see this every quarter. And it's something that you've always had to do custom. And a lot of times the data reporting software just doesn't have that functionality. And now it becomes a manual process for you. But I love that AI tool, and I'm very excited about it, because I think that even if you're not an advisor's PM, because a lot of our advisors outsource that to our corporate office, they still plan to use it for the exact example that you just mentioned. Someone calls in, or right now the markets are a little volatile. There's a specific question that comes up, and maybe that wasn't one they were prepared for, or they want to look a little deeper into it. And so now that feature will allow to have that conversation. So
Yeah. And at the end of the day, Jordan, there's such a challenge in the industry between fee compression and clients really are do-it-yourselfers and know a lot about the markets and so have better, more sophisticated questions. And you want to grow your practice. And to do all this stuff, you need time. You just need time. And not that's not time to go, play more golf or anything. That's time to just grow your practice. And the thing we're excited about with our customers is they are telling us we are saving them 4 hours of time a week or up to 20 hours of time a month. And we're helping them bring in 20 to 33% more new business as a result of using our software. So that makes us so happy because we're saying, hey, as fees are getting bumped down
Right.
and the pressure to grow your practice is more and more, we're helping them give them back their time and give them a greater chance to win that new business. And that's all we want to do. That's what we're about.
I mean, those three numbers, I feel like I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna write those down. We'll add them to the show notes for sure. But those are three very powerful numbers of time given
Hmm.
back. I mean, that is huge.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes people think that I wouldn't need a software like this if I'm just a hardcore planner and I'm
Hmm.
not using the investment side. But these are the questions that come up because, I mean, you've seen this research too. And I know your team's done a ton of research on it as well. But like Morningstar showed where what do people still see us as, like as advisors?
Hmm.
What are they still coming to us?
Hmm.
And it's still they want to help. They want help with their portfolio. So even if
Hmm.
you're helping with estate plan and
Hmm.
college planning
Yep.
or whatever, add to that
Hmm.
long list, you still got to win at the number one thing before you ever get them as a client. So if you're not
You are
having
so
that
right.
conversation, it's going to be a moot point for you.
Yeah, between that, which I'm so happy you said that, because at the core, people go to their wealth advisors for that word wealth, which is help me do the right things with my wealth. Thank you for the financial plan and thank you for the trust stuff. I appreciate that. Those are all additive things, but help me with the wealth part. And what we found out in polling, not advisors, but advisors' clients you were
Mm-hmm.
referring to, is 70 to 75% of advisors' clients considered leaving their advisor in the last 18 months. And some subset of those did. But why did they consider? It was about feeling good about that plan and
Right.
that financial progress. And number two is I'm not hearing great communication out of my advisor. And that pisses me off because I was at a dinner party and heard of somebody who was doing great communication with their advisor. And so this communication element, I can't understate it enough. Even if an advisor just puts an email in, lofts it into an email box and it's generated by something like our system, the advised individual sees that email is there. Even if they don't read it, they say, wow, I felt a little bit of love from my advisor today or this week. And that's so powerful.
And that touches on another, it's kind of an industry buzzword, but it's also very true, is like the personalization piece. How do you scale, but also be personalized to your 100 plus households? And this is an opportunity to do it because you're going to have that ability to scale that if you're wanting to create something that's custom to your clients, or if you've done a great job of like client segmentation to figure out who are the ones that are really worried about this, who's the ones that want
Hmm.
this. Now you've got a way to automate that or to be able to send that out in a timely manner. But no, I'm
Yep.
100% agreement. And the communication piece is a huge thing for me. With half of my brain is tech and half of it is the behavioral side of our industry. And so
Hmm.
that communication side is so powerful. We talk about this at RFG all the time, that there's a thing called a phone that is not
Yeah.
just for your email or text messaging. It's actually great to have phone calls, and people still
Yep.
love having a phone call. And your
Yeah.
research actually
Yeah.
showed some of that like they still want phone calls. I mean, just because you're in your 30s, 40s,
Yep.
whatever, sub
Yep.
50, you still want to have someone call you and be like, "Hey, this is what's going on. I'm just checking to see how are you feeling about these tariffs situation going on."
Yep. Yeah. I've never gotten in trouble with my wife for saying I love you too many times.
Right.
And it's similar with clients. Like, how are you showing that you love them today?
That's a great example, and the one that I always use is, have you ever called your client and they've been upset that you called them? Like,
Yep.
and especially
Yep.
if you have retired or retiree clients, there's a huge problem with loneliness. And
Hmm.
we've seen all that behavioral research on that side. Giving them a phone call, yeah, it might take a little bit. It's not going to be maybe a 5-10 minute call because they want to chat about it. But
Hmm.
you're talking about you're scoring so much like capital or filling
Hmm.
up that cup of their love for you. And who knows, they might
Yep.
be with some friends and be like, oh,
Yep.
it's just my advisor just checking in to see how I was doing with these things. Boom, now you got a
Yep.
referral. Like,
Yeah. And besides that, Jordan, at some point in time, those wonderful, more elderly customers are going to pass their wealth on to others. And there's no better endorsement than a retiree who says, I am where I am in a small part, but a meaningful part because of that advisor that I entrusted our life journey to.
yeah.
And that's a huge endorsement, whether it's to a friend or to your children. That's pretty compelling.
Yeah, that's a conversation too that we talk a lot about is, and I know you talk about it as well, is the wealth transfer. And I don't think there's just like, it has, like we're in this massive one, like this has been going on. Like it's already been
Hmm.
happening. We're already in the midst of this. And this is just the cycles of life with these generations. But if you're leveraging ways to communicate with them, and this is where I think you and I like very much probably see a line, is that like you've got to leverage technology for the generations coming up. Otherwise, you're going to lose those. And we've all seen the research of them leaving their parents' advisor to go to someone else because you're not communicating or you're not
Hmm.
delivering it in a format that they're a medium that they prefer. And so you've got to
Yep.
lean into the tech to be able to get that.
Yeah, and I remember when I was a strategy consultant, we had this thing we called the iron triangle, and that was you can be fast, you can be cheap, or you can be good. Pick two. That always struck me, and I've always taught with advisors, they're faced with their own iron triangle. It's better investment returns, better client service, or lower fees. Pick two. And my mission is pick three. Pick all three. Be great at all three. Technology is a key component to that iron triangle not being a choice. It's an and statement, and you're saying, I'm all three to my clients. Better investment returns, more appropriate investment returns, better customer service, better communication, and my fees are competitive. They don't need to be the lowest, but they're competitive with others.
Right.
And that's how technology is going to be able to help advisors.
I completely agree. And speaking of that, what can you tell us or give us like some insight or maybe a little vantage point of some of the things that you and YCharts are working on or looking at? Like, and maybe you don't have to disclose any secrets, but where are you starting to see things move for you guys?
Um,
Like
we
roadmap
have
kind of things.
always
Yeah.
Yeah, so just some context for that. We have always been there to help our clients do great research and build great portfolios. We have been moving upstream over the years to help them do the things to help land new customers. So I kind of walked you through it a little bit earlier, but
Hmm.
it starts with how do you market? We help them create great marketing things on their own. They can create a chart, whatever, or we will create it for you. We put out pre-published books of the top 10 charts. Hey, what happens? What are the most important charts to communicate about what happens to markets in election years? Um, what do you need to know about recessions and balancing a portfolio in recessions? We white label these things out, Jordan, so that an advisor can put this out with a custom note to their client, excuse me, to their prospect, and maybe they earn their way into a discussion. And then I kind of walked you through the workflow that happens from there with, hey, can I see your statement? Okay, let me compare your statement to my recommended portfolio and all the merits. We're just trying to help them bring in the new business
Right.
because we already know we help them keep and better serve and grow their AUM once they've got a customer. And AI is a very important element to that, and it supports some of these key workflows in a major way.
No, I think that's great. And that's we were even a client of YCharts, I've always been a subscriber to the newsletter because of one of those features is your content that you put out is so valuable. And so many times people think like the dinners or those like meetings when you're spending time with clients, those to tell a story are still, in my opinion, one of the most powerful ways to get clients. And I have been a follower and like reader of your content for a while because you'll put out those charts of like certain times of the years or certain things that are
Hmm.
going on. And it is one of those most powerful ones. And I've actually heard a couple of our advisors use it in the exact format of, hey, I've got a couple clients come in. I didn't even have to create this. I just white labeled it, obviously compliance approved,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
went right into the meeting, and it saved me a ton of time. And so I was able to, I've had a ton of them right now giving me feedback on using the extraction tool, just to how quick they can get it in there from a prospect standpoint, instead of it having to be like, all right, well, I'll talk to you in, 2 days, do this. Like, no, I can go ahead and show you a proposal pretty quick. So
That makes me happy.
yeah, it's been good. I'm also I'm a fan, so uh, it's definitely giving you guys some love on that front. So speaking in a broader context, and I know you've touched on it a little bit, where do you think, like as like wealth tech or however you want to define it, just like the advisor's role, where do you see the industry really going? Like, do you see what do you see changing or becoming ancillary services? Just what's your kind of your thoughts on the future of our wealth tech industry?
Well, I think the industry is still trying to decide is what's better, best of suite or best of breed. Again, back to my iron triangle analogy, I don't think that should be a choice. I think things need to be plug and play. I
Yeah.
don't think advisors should be forced to swivel chair. I don't think advisors should have different concepts of an account or holdings or a portfolio in different systems. So, where I think the industry's headed, whether it's a behemoth who's creating their own all in one, which
Hmm.
has its faults because maybe any piece of the functionality is not market competitive, I think the industry is headed towards much more plug and playable applications that can all play nice together, have the same concepts, the same construct, and similar views of data models, so that the advisor is not burdened with being a chief technology officer. They can be an advisor and know that their workflows are masterfully supported. So, Jordan, I just say opening up systems and making them individually great. That's the strategy we're heading down
Right.
is, we play very nicely with custodians. We play very nicely with CRMs, with portfolio accounting systems. Um, and we want to focus on the things that we do really well and let others focus on what they do well.
No, I like that, and I think that there's a lot of value in that, and it's one of actually the feedback from our on our corporate side whenever we were vetting software and looking at the industry that you live in, or the domain that you live in. The one of my intern investment team was like, Jordan, the way to get everything integrated was probably the easiest thing, and like the how to sync up everything was probably the easiest I've ever had to do it. Like, I didn't need your whole team of technology people to help out with it, to get import my
Hmm.
portfolios into our
Yeah.
corporate stuff on our TAMP. He's like, Jordan, that was so easy, and now I have the ability to share that out, because a lot of our advisors that use our TAMP, we will share our models and some proposals and stuff, and we build that content for them. The sharing of that, and I know that sounds so small, but those are the death by 1,000 cuts that advisors I hear about all the time. They're like, Jordan, this is such a laborious process. Like, I just want to get my model in here. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, but
Yeah.
I have to key
Yeah.
all this in. Why is there not a
Yeah.
button that just syncs it up? Or
I know.
why do they not
I
speak
know.
well? So what you're mentioning is really powerful, because that you're working well with all your other systems. The integrations work
Yeah.
nicely. From a user's experience, I've heard a lot of that same good content. So or good context of it. So I appreciate that. But I do think that that's an interesting path, because some people think that the all-in-one is the perfect fit, but are you getting really the different differentiator of all the different pieces? So one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to mention before we start getting to the back half of the pod, um, something that I always point out, because I'm an advocate of a guy named Frank Slootman, who was the CEO of Snowflake. He wrote a great book called Amp It Up. I highly recommend it to anyone that is a business-minded person, and especially in the technology world. He was the CEO of ServiceNow, some other great companies, less in the financial services, but just a brilliant from seeing how support and all of that works. And this is something too that I wanted to point out because I've worked with so many vendors. I've met so many great people. However, sometimes support is really bad, and it's very frustrating because especially with like, internally at RFG, tier 1, tier 2 support, 3/4 of the time is handled by us. But when there's an actual thing that I can't control or my admin portal can't handle, we have to go to the vendor. And so I say this not as just trying to gas up YCharts and you, Sean, to give everybody, to give you more love on it. But you've done a really good job with your support team. And so I wanted to just ask, like, is there something specific that you've done or how you've structured your team or anything like that? Because that is one thing that I have been wildly surprised how quickly things are handled and how well it is handled, which is not, I'm not trying to down anyone. I'm not going to name any names, but like it has been such a seamless process to work with you guys on the support side when there's something we need to change, or if it's a billing issue that we had and we're like, oh, hey, can you help us fix this? You've been great to work with. So how have you structured, or is there any insight that on that's made it such a differentiator for you guys?
First, I want to say thank you for saying that. I mean, I can't tell you how often I hear this, but how it feels so wonderful to hear it every time. So, um, we're trying to make our customers badass. And in trying to make our customers badass, we agreed a decade ago that we were going to model ourselves after Nordstrom. And have you ever heard the legendary stories of Nordstrom, where uh, an elderly person will come in with a tire and they will say, "I'd like to return this car tire." And the Nordstrom employees will look at each other and say, "We don't sell tires." But they say, "Sir, how much did you pay for that tire?" $250. And then they give them a cash out of $250. We want to be like that. We we get calls saying, "Hey, I have a billing question." That's easy. We get a lot of calls saying, "I want to think through a new strategy for how I'm doing my models. And here's the dynamics I'm facing, and here's some of my concerns. Can you strategize with me?" So our commitment is we're just trying to make you badass in whatever you need. And it's not that hard to say what we do is really good data in a really powerful and easy to use tool, wrappered in outstanding customer support. And for us, when we put that together, once somebody's a customer of YCharts, they're a customer forever.
Right.
Our average customer has a 8.7 year tenure with YCharts. Why? Because if we've earned your business, we will re-earn your business every single day, and services is a big part of that, Jordan.
No, I love that you say that because it seems like such a simple thing, but it has to be purposeful. I truly think that it has to be purposeful from you and the rest of your leadership team because it all starts from the top on that mindset. Because a lot of places might look at the support side as a cost because it's
Yeah.
not and how it's structured. But those are, I mean, very time consuming conversations. Hey, can you
hmm
strategize with me
hmm
about, and then
Yep.
there's this list. I mean, that's now you've
Yeah.
become a consultant almost of like
Yep.
of how they're going to deliver this to a client. But they win that client or they get the comfort of that client. I mean, that's a pretty priceless win for an advisor.
Yeah, and listen, we're not a charity though. Guess what? When they're at a show like the recent Future Proof down in Miami, we got about 10 new customers who said, "I was standing in line for some food and heard one of my peers that I didn't know before the show. They were raving about what you guys do. Um, Here's my credit card." Like, it comes back, it's a win-win for YCharts and their customers. So I don't know why more people don't do it, Jordan. I've mentioned this as a differentiator. It's not that hard to replicate, but we're super proud that we do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'm trying to replicate it here at RFG. We've got a very purposeful team, how we've structured what we call our practice development team. And it's really like take customer success, practice management and tech consulting and kind of put that triangle into one. And that's really, and they feed straight up to how I see like product. So like if they're having consistent problems or issues, then it means something needs to be fixed, like a bigger thing, instead of just an isolated team that doesn't have that ability or strength or to have that conversation with the advisor about their whole book. So I am a fan, and I always look for that because support is really important. So you've worked for some great companies. We were chatting about this before, some massive companies in the business. You've been a leader at multiple ones. The pedigree of your education is impressive. So I always love to have nuggets from people that have done great things, and I feel like people get a lot of value of hearing that. So what might be like a nugget of insight that you could pass on to other people in the tech industry, but also advisors as they're building a company?
What would be my advice for, I think my biggest advice would be just focus on the customer.
Yeah.
Just understand everything you can about them and how they spend their day. Go all in, commit to whatever your idea or your product is. And if you believe in it and you execute well, everything else will work out for you.
Yeah. The quote that's been, we actually have no idea who actually said it because, it's one of those quotes that it could have been Mark Twain, it could have been Leonardo da Vinci, it could have been Abraham Lincoln, but it's simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think that just that simplicity of like focusing on them is such a powerful statement. So my last question that I always ask, because it's kind of a flip on what I just asked you, but what is the worst advice someone has given you?
Oh, I've been given a lot of been given a lot of bad advice. I think the biggest one is probably don't worry about the details, just focus on the big picture. That's horrible advice. Like, you got to be thinking about both. Portfolios crash and businesses crash because you're not thinking about the details and the strategic things at the same time. So that's bad advice, and I don't take that advice.
No, it's a good one. My team knows very well that I'm a fan of saying that the devil's in the details, and that's especially with technology. There's always something, and that's why you do tons of testing and you do small rollouts to see, because those details can be quite vicious if you're not paying attention to them.
Yep.
Sean, I appreciate all the time today. I know you're a busy man, and I appreciate the insight, and I know our advisors and the industry will appreciate hearing from you and about YCharts. So thanks for joining me on Game Film today.
Hey, Jordan, thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill, and you're doing great things in the industry, and so is your business. So thank you for letting me join you guys.
Yeah, and thanks for wearing the jersey. So I love seeing the jersey, so I had to put that in there.
You bet, man.
Thank you for listening to the Game Film Podcast. Click the follow button to become notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rfgadvisory.com. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It's not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guests nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of our guests. They do not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, its employees, or its clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, LLC, RFG Advisory, or RFG, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place. RFG Advisory is an SEC registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of RFG by the Commission, nor does it indicate that RFG or any associated investment advisory representative has attained a particular level of skill or ability.